for another session and another learning. I'll share a couple of insights throughout the presentation today. So just to give a bit of an understanding, I'll of course present myself shortly, a bit of the background, the experience, where I come from and why am I here. I'm also going to share some key thoughts on the impact that has been happening with COVID-19 on the remote work, and also a deep dive on the future workplace trends that you should be aware of. Then last but not least, like also looking at some best practices that we are doing on remote work in the company, as well as some tips and tricks for whoever wants to enter the job space in the next, 6 months or 3 months. And there's Q&A at the end, but I will stop at every section, or if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat and throughout the presentation to make it more interactive rather than waiting for the end. So if I'm saying something, or if you see something interesting and you have a question, feel free to drop on the chat and I'll take on it in one of the breaks between the sections. And I hope that makes sense. And if I'm speaking too fast or the accent is too strong, also do let me know on the chat and I'll do my best to see what I can do about that. A bit more about myself and why am I here and how I got here. One of the things to keep in mind is that, of course, I'm from Portugal. I come from a city that is a very small city, about 70 kilometers south of Porto. So it's in the north of Portugal, very warm country, very family driven. And yeah, I have a couple of passions throughout the world. So I love to read, I draw as well. I do mindfulness practices like yoga. I also like to travel a lot and host people. It's been a very strong part of my life. As you can see, I have traveled to over 60 countries around the world already. I lived in Portugal, of course, where I was born, but I also lived in Belgium, the Netherlands, and I also lived in India, in Delhi for some time. I also love to play table tennis, which you can see from the top part, and I also love to have dogs. And I'm happy to have grown with a very strong family and community, and also have a lovely family here in the Netherlands with my wife. And today I'm Chief Growth Officer at EVBox. For the ones that do not know, EVBox is one of the major companies worldwide that develops and manufactures charging solutions for electric cars. So as you know, there's quite a trend towards sustainable mobility, and electric mobility is here to stay. There's more and more electric cars available around the world. Just recently, through many different mediums, a lot of companies in India also shared how much the electric tuk-tuks will be moved to be fully sustainable as well, the rickshaws. So of course, it's a growing industry. I joined the company about 5 years ago when we had about 15 people, and we are now about 600. And when I joined, it was just in the Netherlands. Now we are in over 70 countries. So in 5 years time, we grow in 70 countries. We grew the revenue of 85% year on year, and now we are 600 people and more. So growth is a very core part of my career, and that's why I love it so much. I consider myself a humanist technologist, so I really love to work and to build up technology for the greater good of humankind, especially technology that serves the well-being of it. And I also have a project that is called Teams with Hugo, which is more of a career development, leadership development, team management kind of initiative that I launched on my own, where I release a couple of videos. I have a podcast coming soon with a lot of different experts, which for the people that want to be a manager in the future, it can be a good source of knowledge as I keep on doing just on a social level and for fun. So that's a bit about myself. And to get started, because everyone saw the impact of COVID-19 and it is clear that it affected all of us, I think one of the interesting things that everyone starts immediately by sharing what was the impact and how much challenges has been brought up. But I like to start by the opportunities. And I don't want you to read the text. You can read these later. I'll share the slides so that you can have access to them. I don't want to spend time reading on that. I just want to focus more on how the crisis can bring new opportunities. This is just one of the examples in one of the industry sectors, but applies to so many of them. What you start to notice and to see across organizations, and it's important that you know this because it's going to be the new norm, is that a lot of the interactions today with the customers are still very much driven offline, and the requirement for offline sales is still happening. You have sales teams going around the country or going around cities from company to company, losing so much time on traffic, whereby after COVID, there will be a translation that, actually we can do business online, and people who value more hey, today I'll not go to the office, 1 hour, half away. Let's do first a conference call with video and then move forward. Before it was not seen as a sign of confidence. Now it's going to be reduced. So online self-service and sales is definitely going to be something that will become part of our daily norm, not just on the retail web shops, but also on consultancy and other kind of projects. Work and serving the customers remotely is something that is extremely important. A good example, at TV Box, we install stations around the world, so we need actually electricians to go on site and install, and we still have to do so. But now we do all the preparation online beforehand. So we readjusted all our way of working in order to provide that input beforehand. Last but not least, the companies that will excel and remain after COVID stronger are the ones that stand by their customers and not stand by their own profits. And it's an extremely important one because you start to see the differences now. If I can give you a personal example, you see, for example, that Airbnb is actually growing well with this industry, whereby Booking.com is really struggling and fighting a lot of, both of them fighting a lot of people, but both of them with very different perceptions of how well they are doing after COVID. That's because Airbnb focus on the customer and the well-being of their staff, whereby Booking.com focus on how can I keep my margins and how can I make my shareholders happy. And that's having an effect now. And the last one is that if everyone, there's like a picture going around like who digitalized the company, if it was the CTO, the CEO, or if it was COVID. So clearly boosting operations digitally is going to become the norm. And this is actually quite an advantage for whoever is coming out now of business schools, of masters, because there is already a trend of accepting and acknowledging how to tap into the digital world because it's part of the day-to-day basis. But a lot of the workforce is not used to it. So it's an opportunity for acceleration. So that's why I wanted to start by the opportunities that come with COVID in digitalizing the world, and that's a benefit for everyone rather than with the challenges. So people were asking what is a new norm that's going to come after COVID. On the left, what you see is just a representation of Europe on the amount of people by percentage that were working from home compared to total employment. You can see countries like the Nordic countries like Sweden, Iceland, Netherlands already had 20% plus of the work population working from home often. So that was already more adopted, but you can see countries where I come from, where Portugal 9% or Italy 1% or Germany 7%, that really struggle to see what was coming, what was to work from home. So what will happen now is that naturally, this is going to change the paradigm of what it means unemployment. And the new normal of employability is that, if I see you, I understand you. And now it's going to change that you might not see the person, you have to trust the person. So trust is going to be the new component that will make people excel and companies excel. And that's one thing that to keep in mind for everyone. It is the webinar that trusts and generating trustworthy relationships is going to be a critical asset or a skill to develop that will make a difference, because now everyone has to trust that you are doing the right work at home, even if you might do in a different way, because you have to trust the outcome, because you are not in the office. So I cannot see you, I cannot control you, which is an old way of school of management, that you can control people by seeing them and influence the office space. Now you cannot do that. What you see on the right side is already what was one of the largest surveys that happened recently, where 35% of the people said they will actually quit their current job for more flexibility and opportunity to work from home. And over 40% of the company expect the share of people of work from home to increase further in the next 5 to 10 years. But these 5 to 10 years, I can tell you, is going to be the next 1 to 2 years. Examples from our own company at TV Box. Within 3 months, we changed all our working policy, whereby now everyone can work from home, 1, 2, or the full week. And we also equip the people at home with a package to support them to set up the right equipment at home, which is a critical aspect of things. So we offer, up to $1,000 to equip every single person at the company to ensure that they have the right desk, the right chair, the right monitoring, the right capabilities to do the best work. So that's something that will become more and more the norm. I don't know who of you are already working or not, or did an internship already, like for some years looking. But there are 3 phases they're going to see that is happening. Now everyone is doing remote work because there's the government restrictions. So everyone is doing remote work. They don't know how to go back to the office. As the government restrictions decrease, what you're going to see is a staggered return of re-entry. So you're going to start seeing that companies are going to be like, okay, how are we going to re-entry? How are we going to bring people to the office? But they know that they cannot bring everyone back to the office normally, You might have to have 1.5-meter distance. You might have to have new safety regulations. And people might want to stay at home more often because they were more productive. So there will be a new normal of working that will be the post-COVID. And a lot of people already talked about that. What is true? It's going to be a pre-COVID and a post-COVID, where pre-COVID, the office space was designed to fit a lot of people and was designed to fit a good collaboration system. And now what's going to happen after COVID is that the workspace is going to be challenged to be designed for high collaboration, for intention. You go to the office to actually act on something that you want to do in a collaborative way rather than just to work behind your computer. For that, you just stay at home. Which is also going to change also the home market. How you're going to set up a home that fills an office, but also allows you to step out of it. Because one of the main challenges that people are facing by being at home is that there is a very thin line between when work finishes and when home starts. And that's a challenge that has been across multiple organizations that has not yet been found a way to fix it because people are still learning how to get out of it. And this is like the latest perspectives on what's been happening. So if you look from an environment point of view, like social distancing ratios, office climate conditions, office inventory, what you see now is that the remote working doesn't really apply to this because you are home at work, but the re-entry strategy has to tap into this. It has to be able to think about, okay, how I'm going to keep the ratios, how I'm going to have the climate conditions, how I'm going to create space for collaboration at a distance. The other one is the engagement. This is a factor that has to be present in all of these places, which is how I'm going to do new employee activities. If I want to do a team building, how I'm going to evaluate employee performance or health. What are the impact factors of engagement? And the other one will be like, of course, the efficiency. How are we going to do with remote meeting rooms utilization, no-shows, passive occupancy or active occupancy? So on now, because everyone is work from remotely, you don't have to think about this because your room is your workspace you set up for yourself. But as you go back to the office and you go back to schools, is about, okay, how many people are actually going to come to the office today? You might have to set up that you have to sign up to go to the office because you need to know how much is the max capacity. If you have a meeting room utilization before, a meeting room of 10 people might have to become 5. If someone doesn't show up, then what does it mean? So these are the kind of things that are happening, that are transforming the workplace world. And there's not a best case solution that fits them all. So that's in terms of some of the impact that you see. Maybe I'll make a pause here. I don't know if it's practice or not. If you already want to have any questions that you have on the chat around this initial setup of what has been the main impact of COVID in some of the workplaces. I assume that by seeing no chat, there's no questions. It's very clear or very boring. Hopefully the second one. Hopefully not the second one. All right. Continuing. Some of the other things to keep in mind, which is future trends and what's been happening and being discussed. So what you see here is a very busy, what could be the training skills in this scenario, Gaurav? Well, I have actually a slide on the skills. Let's hold on to that question because I have it somewhere down a couple of slides, but there will be some skills that you have to keep in mind. I'll go and highlight them towards the end. Thanks for the question. This was a glimpse of a future scenario on how the office of 2030 was looking like. And this was done at the beginning of this year. And as you can see, was like, desks that move, meditation pods, canteens, collaboration environment. But you can see here that no one could predict this. So this reality here might no longer be applied. What exactly is going to be the office space? So one of the big trends that is happening is like, okay, what is going to be the purpose of offices and how is these are going to affect global conglomerates? Yeah, for example, EVBox has 13 offices worldwide. One of the things we are questioning is, okay, should we still have offices outside of the headquarters? Shouldn't we just have everyone working in a co-working area space that you can tap into when you need and work from home the rest of the time? So that is going to change the concept of the office and the concept of work as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is that there are 5 trends that before Corona were shaping the future of work and are still going to be shaped now, which was 1, the new behaviors. So there's new behaviors that are being shaped and shared through social media and influencers. We live in an era of influencers, we live in an era of social media. that is also shaping the type of behavior that has been happening. One of the things that has been happening in the future of work is that there is quite a demand for personal branding, which also leads to high competitiveness, which also leads to a lot of anxiety. Never before so many people felt so much anxiety at work as today because of the continuous focus and the continuous threshold that social media provides. Because you always see the quality of life or the positive quality of life of people on social media, and that keeps you on the push to also provide and have those experiences. So that has a positive effect in some cases. It has quite a negative effect in some other ones at work. So the understanding that social media also influences the mood also is important from a work, future of work and how it's driven as well. The second one is technologies. Collaborative technology are taking a leap. For the ones that do know, one of the main technologies that enables collaboration are actually growing a lot. You have the case of Zoom that we are here today. We also have Miro, which is a high collaborative tool. We have like webinars online, Livestorm. So all of these tools are growing because one, they are all cloud-based. They build upon data and they're based on collaboration, which is going to be the large technology leaps that we're going to take. One of the things that is good to keep in mind that is going to affect the future of work is this interconnected device. So with the introduction of 5G networks, the speed of the internet is going to be so much more than what you have today with 4G that you're going to be able to, translate into new requirements at work. So you might be arriving at work and your phone connects with certain characteristics of your desk and immediately adjusts your desk before you arrive to it. Your luminosity, your lights, your sound, if you like a specific music, all of that might affect immediately all at once. Then the other trend is, of course, there is a millennial workforce that is becoming bigger than the old generation of baby boomers. So new attitudes, new expectations, ways of working, which you're going to get there because it's all about purpose-driven careers. Whereby before, most of the older generation was looking more for reliability and security. And there was more respect towards like, oh, I spent 10 years, 15 years, 20, 30 years in the same company, even if at a certain point in time I feel it doesn't serve the purpose or I'm not learning. The same does not happen today. If you are not learning and growing, you are stagnating. And if you're stagnating, you look for a new purpose in a new organization. So it's normal to have, at an early stage, more companies at 25 than the parents than your parents have had for their whole life. Then there is the mobility aspect, which was accelerated with COVID. So work anytime, anywhere on any device. One of the big trends that is going to happen is that there is a tendency to even have to stay in the same country, but that is changing more and more. And COVID is just going to accelerate the fact that companies might start figuring out that, well, if people can work from home and I can overcome the legal challenges, I might hire one of the best talents I have out of Australia and let him work from Australia, him or her work from Australia. And not have to come to Netherlands or Portugal and make these whole changes, because in the global network, there's no more boundaries. And also there is a change that you do not always have to work in what is called a synchronous way. The traditional way of working of a workplace is you arrive at 8 or 9 a.m. and you leave at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., something like that. But the tendency towards asynchronous work is going to be elevated with remote working, where someone might want to start waking up at 6 a.m. and leave at 3 or 2 p.m. and then next day read. So you start building up on top of each other. We don't have to do everything in real time at the same time. We might work in different momentums and build on each other. That's one of the changes that is happening with workplace and also career development. And this is one of the main changes that is happening, which is with the work environment. Probably you have affinity with this, which is going to go beyond salaries and traditional benefits. The three main things that people are looking for is like, seeking a bigger purpose. Where can I grow and find innovation, and where can I find more education? And when I say highly educated, I don't mean university. I mean highly educated in terms of being more conscious of what's happening in the world, what kind of technology are advancing, and being able to also be entrepreneurs in taking the education and initiative towards them. And then, okay, human contact is still very important. There's still an element of human contact that is specialized. Training and development, flexibility, and continuous feedback and growth is something that is the most of the triggers of motivation of the current workforce that is driving the future. So those are the ones that probably you have some affinity with, and this is some of the things that some of the workplaces and managers have to start being aware of. You might find those managers, you might not find, but if you do not find, you do have the responsibility to try to educate and support your manager to get the new era and how to strive for it. And then there was a question from Gaurav on the training skills. These are the skills that you have to think beyond whatever you are learning to perform on a job. This is what's going to start making a difference between the ones that strive and become even more successful and the ones that are still going to enjoy, you know, life like it is, but might not grow a lot. There's like the 4 C's, you know, like of the 21st century skills that are being practiced, which is communication, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration. So having in mind those, these are a couple of things that you have to translate and think about. One of them is in a way of working. Effective communication and high collaboration is going to become the bare minimum to be able to operate on a scale up or a startup or anything that requires to upper growth. Communication and effective communication is important because you're going to start working more and more in a globalized environment. So what you perceive as effective communication might be different from someone else. You might believe that you are very descriptive, and the other person might feel that you are not, you just stay on high level. So having effective communication means that you have to start educating yourselves on what are the triggers, the pains and gains of the different people that you work with, and how you can be a supportive element for them. Collaboration means that you understand that you have end-to-end accountability. You are not alone in a company. You are responsible for certain things, but the more you understand how those things connect with each other, the more you're going to bring the collaboration upwards. Then on the critical thinking, that's going to be such an important one because it's all about problem solving and decision making and being able to read data, understand what the data is saying and understanding what it's behind it. Also, the learning index is going to be quite important. So like having high knowledge and having high aptitude to learn knowledge. And of course, creativity is a critical one because creativity is what's going to be the driving force of companies that need to act and take all those things that are happening so frequently in a more often way. Then there's 2 things to keep in mind. One of them is IT literacy and information literacy. We are in a world where there's so much information available out there. It starts to become hard, one, to know what's real and what's not real, because there's all sorts of different sources. That's why there is a trend on the whole fake news. But it means that you have to be extra sharp on searching information and being open for different alternatives to build a more compelling story. The other one is that there are like hundreds and thousands of tools being created and available to you to perform your role. There's just in the marketing ecosystem, there's like about, I don't know, 300 tools of marketing available just to perform certain activities. Having the ability to tap into different tools, understand how they work and quickly learn how they can benefit the business is going to become important. Very simple example. Some people, know how to operate Zoom, which is super simple, but some other people have quite some challenges. In the future, there'll be some tools that you might not be able to operate. You have to have a very high literacy and learning index because technology is going to be all around you. And the last one is, of course, there's an element of citizenship, which is, yes, you are going to be a citizen that you have some experience locally, but in a globalized world, not having the ability or not having a chance to have a global experience outside of your country in a global multicultural team, you will not be able to grasp a whole multitude of perspectives that you might lose by not having it. So it's one of the recommendations I always have. If you want to have more skills, you also have to get out of your comfort zone, which might mean getting out of your city, of your country, and even working for organizations or cultures that you might not be using, you might be challenged on, get there. And the other one is that your career is not just your work, yeah? There's a tendency of saying like you live to work. No, you work, then that supports you on your development and ability to live even better, to live happier. So that personal and social responsibility, cultural awareness and competence is going to be another element that is going to be critical and that we are looking at for the skills that you want to grasp today, train, develop, learn from, and build for the future. On the trends, any slide or any question that you have at this stage that you like to take on? Again, feel free to use the chat if you have so. If not, I'll continue and then I'll see. So I don't know if you're working remotely or not, even if you are on studying or not. So what I like to do is just to share some of the best practices. Yeah, all right. So Nayan, how to improve these skills you mentioned? So there's a couple of things. There's one of them that is you have basically 3 ways at first of learning these skills. Yeah. So one of them is your inner self. And by doing that, it's by actually actively taking time to learn. And that might mean that you take time to search books that you might challenge you and read about that. So you might want to search for books that ignite creativity or the effective communication or collaboration. Or then if you want to have better information literacy, try new tools that you never tried before. I have some elements of some slide later on some of these things. The other thing that you have to think about is also like some of these elements are done by doing things completely opposite from traditional learning, which is like reading a book. You can also read online. There's LinkedIn Learning, there's Masterclass, there's Udemy. There's so many online classes and free knowledge that you can tap into. You know, Stanford School or Harvard School has free classes that you can see online. Taking time to learn on a daily basis, if not, I would say in a weekly basis, is extremely important. On a daily basis, I always read a bit. I might see a video to challenge me. I do meditation, and it's not a checkbox. I do these things because they do help me get centered. You know, I do practice meditation because it allows me to be sharper and to pause, and that allows me to practice critical thinking and also to get sharper. For creativity, that's why I paint. It allows me to express some creativity, to get things out of the normal. In the Corona period, I decided to start doing a puzzle. Innovation and creativity also happens on things that you might do out of your comfort zone that you might not have done before. These are some of the things you can do. The other thing is the outer self, which is more what is your network around you that allows you to learn from quickly. Do you have friends, mentors, coaches that allows you to challenge and to step out? And the last one is actually to step out of the comfort zone in the sense of exploring the world if you have the chance, or doing a work over the summer that you might not usually do, or stepping out and actually having a conversation. If you go to the next time to a store that you always go, maybe ask how the store is doing, enter on a conversation about the business. So it's a lot about exploring experiences that you might not be normally doing. Yeah. Getting out of the routine, and those ones are different skills require different things. Learning a new language can also like trigger critical thinking and connect with new people on a global level. Feel free to keep posting the questions. On the remote practice, so I had some of the remote work best practices, not because some of these you might apply in the future, just for you to keep in mind. Some of them you can apply today. These are things that we are doing in a company. One of the things that remote work can be productive, but can also be really tiring and distracting. Most of the people, we did a survey within the company, over 60% of the people felt more productive at home than before, which was great. But also, 30% people felt the work-life balance improved. But, another survey we did this month already, people said like they feel more tired at home because it's very challenging to keep the productivity high. And what works for a coworker might not work for the other one. So people are starting to have late days. So there's 4 structures to keep in mind. One of them is starting up the day, building a workflow, engaging with the team, and managing the time. On starting up the day, and it seems like some of these things seem like very simple, but you'll be surprised about how many people are not able to cope with them. So I'll get one: getting dressed. You will see so many comments online and fun videos of people that were in pajamas the whole day, on other kind of like comfortable clothes, which you should be in a comfortable clothes, but the dressing mentality of like, I'm waking up, I'm going to go to work, or I'm going to go to a study, I'm going to develop my thesis. That moment of focus is to dress for the occasion. And that tricks and builds up the brain to think about, I am stepping out of the home to a focus moment. The other one in the morning is that even if it's for 10 minutes, any like yoga, exercise, stretches, even if it's just for 5-10 minutes, can really build up the heart rate to be more productive in the morning. And the last one is one that I have like my long doubts that many people do, but there's more and more situations where eating unplugged can really help you become more calm throughout the day. So I try and I explore, and that happens pretty much almost every day, maybe except some occasions. The first half an hour to 1 hour of the day, I do not touch my phone, nor TV, nothing. It's just waking up, have a bit of yoga to centralize, to get a bit energized, shower, eat the breakfast, and after eating everything, the breakfast, I take notes of the intention for the day, and then I might get digitally connected, laptop, WhatsApp, whatever comes along. So that allows your mind to, to gradually grow into the day, because whatever you see, whatever you start doing, unplug, you don't actually appreciate the moment. And whatever you might read in the morning might immediately set your mood for the day before you are even ready. Imagine you wake up in the morning, you open WhatsApp, someone is upset at you at work and send you a WhatsApp or a work message, and you're not ready for it. You immediately start in the wrong mood. So allow yourself to be there in the day. So that's one of the suggestions. The other one is actually the intention for the day. And it's a very simple check-in and check-out of the day, which is what do you want to accomplish and what do you want to feel throughout the day, which very few people do. The first one, many people do that. I want to complete this presentation. I want to write 30 pages of a thesis. I want to actually set up a new strategy and a new pricing bid for an advertising campaign. But very few people work on how I want to feel throughout the day. Do I want to feel joyful? Do I want to feel confident? Do I want to feel paused? Do I want to feel calm? That can, and if you have that written and you check that a couple of the times during the day, you're going to see that it's going to have some effect on you. The other one is more work environment related, which is to review the calendar for the week and for the day, and to understand what's going to come. If you have 4 back-to-back meetings of half an hour each, you're going to have 2 hours of Zoom calls. You have to be mentally ready to be like, okay, I have 2 hours, but it's going to be tiring and delayed. So then I want to make sure that no one books me for the next 1 hour to relax and to get back in shape. Also, if you get to the work environment, I know it's going to be tough sometimes, especially with your manager, but blocking time, especially if you're working from home, on your calendar saying no meetings for these 2 hours, do make sure you do them and block them, even if you're pressured otherwise. And then the other one to start up the day is to prepare your workspace. Some people just go and pick up the laptop and sit on the couch. Chances are that will immediately reduce productivity, and will make you, less sharp. Having a notebook, daylight, plants, comfortable chair, a lot of water, and getting in a space that you really set up for the workspace. That's one of the most important elements to keep in mind in this situation. So exercise, getting dressed, unplugged breakfast or morning, intention for the day, make sure you check your calendar and prepare your workspace. Then on building the workflow, different methodologies. Some people have a daily planner where you have the key moments of the day, you block time for lunch, you schedule breaks, you block times, you have the do not forget, you have workouts, you have open thoughts. Some people work well with the daily planner. Some people work well with the 1-3-5 rule. If you haven't heard before, it's a rule where you say that half of the week you book for a very focused work session. You do not have anything in that half day but to achieve something big. Then you have 3 sessions of 60 minutes a week that is mostly focused on a big priority that you need to advance 3 times during the week. And then you have a check-in and check-out per week. You start the day, you list your priorities. Priorities are not to-do lists, by the way. And you check out at the end of the week. And you do that, continuously. So that's the rule of the 1-3-5. And then taking breaks. Seems very, very normal, but you'll be surprised how many coworkers are getting burnout and tired, or even students, just because they don't take a break, and to have a coffee break with a coworker, go for a walk, go for a workout, breathing exercise, just to take a step to just eat some nuts or some water, pause. It can really make a difference. And then, if you were on a team, this is more like for team behaviors, but daily check-ins on a team are very important to align on collaboration. If you are working on a group for a thesis, for example, that can also be an important part. Okay, what is a daily check-in? Guys, I feel great today. I feel confident. I'm going to finish these 10 pages. Who's going to focus on the rest? So this is something just to let in mind. And, sometimes end of the day, I don't do end of the day every day, but I do end of the week where I say, okay, what was great about the week? What could have been better? What are some of the things that I might have to change next week if I want to be more productive, or I can be the same? So reflection of the week can really help out. And, if you're closing the day and you're still at home, one of the main challenges is this one. So if you are facing the same challenges, it's important to see what's going to help you clear your mind. And it's either physical exercise, cooking, reading a book, walking for a walk. But you have to find what gets you out of the day-to-day work and out of the day-to-day study and into the home environment that you feel more at home. And yeah, watching TV shows is not clearing your mind. It's just distracting your mind. It's getting it busy. But to clear your mind is a bit different. That's why there is a say that if for your body to be healthy, you need to move, but for your mind to be healthy, you need to be still. So it's a bit of a different mind. And then on managing your time, it's about controlling notifications. I do have, for example, notifications of my smartphone all disconnected. They're all off, especially during the day, because I do not want to be distracted. It's the same distraction as someone at work going to you. If you are invited for a meeting, demand the agenda topic and expected outcome is going to make it better. And adjust, when you do not want to be disturbed, so that you can control your time. So you manage your pace, because you are the only one that can manage your pace. And that's an important question that you have to ask yourself, even if you're studying or you're going to work or you are already working. Are you managing your time and setting your own pace? Or is someone managing your time and setting the pace for you? And if it's the latter one, then you should really think, how is that going to affect your productivity and growth trajectory? And if it's the first one, then great, and see how you can leverage on that. Any questions on these kind of tips on the remote work? Or if you are doing some other things that are worth sharing, please use the chat. Don't be shy. You're all too young to be shy. And please don't call me sir. I'm just messing with you. All right. Next steps, career. Amish, how to increase team efficiency? That's like quite a big question. I would say I have 8 videos on how to build a team on the Teams with Hugo website. I would suggest to, take a look at them, see if that gives you any insights on it. 1 or 3 things that really balance any team is that you need to have clarity. And by clarity, I mean, if a team knows why do I exist? What is my purpose? How am I going to get things done? That clarity is the point 1 that is going to set a foundation for growth. Then you need trust. Without trust, and by trust is not just like, I trust you. No, trust is really I know you are here for me. I know I'm here for you. And I trust that if something is not going in the right direction, you are going to be vulnerable and open to me. So that trust that we are capable of evolving work and be honest with each other, that trust has to be really present on a team, and it is built up by having open feedback with everyone, by having open conversations. This is what I found great about you. This is what could be even better. So that's another element of efficiency. So clarity, trust. And the last one is development, which is a team has to keep developing and experimenting. It cannot be stagnant. So that's some of the elements to keep in mind on the team efficiency. Clarity is key, trust is key, continuous development and learning, and avoiding assumptions. Keep experimenting. That keeps adding on team efficiency, but there's a lot of videos there. So tips. Wherever you are starting, I don't know how many of you spend time on these or not, but do spend a really large amount of time doing on self-awareness. And it's a never-ending thing. By self-awareness means that you know what are the things that give you energy, what drains you down, what brings the best out of you, what kind of personality traits do you have. So spending time on self-awareness is really important. Go online, do what is called, there are different tests. For example, we're just going to write down, there's MBTI, there's Enneagram, there's DISC, I think it's DISC. I don't know if it's with a C or with a K. There's DISC, there's StrengthsFinder. Sorry, I'm just going to write a couple of them. There's a couple of online tests that are very open and insightful and free sometimes, or sometimes like a low budget to invest. Even if it's just gives you a trait for you to look into. Doesn't mean that is who you are. It just gives you some traits for you to be aware of. And if you identify with them, you are just more aware of what you are as a self-person. The other thing that you have to keep in mind, self-awareness is also built by outer awareness. Asking your colleagues, team members to say, okay, let's do a 360 session. What is great about, let's assume that I'm talking to John, the 360 feedback is very simple because you're like, this is what is great about you. This is what things that you do that I admire and I feel so strong about what you bring. These are things that you know, I think they could be better, or there are things that drain me down, or things that I find conflicting. And these are things that are unclear, or this is what is your superpower. Having that 360 feedback across a team is so helpful. It's done in a special way, if done in a good way, because it allows you to learn about each other in a safe environment. Great question from Itia. On working with team members and colleagues can be really difficult and stressful when you are not meeting them. So how do you deal with that? One of the interesting things is to tap in the power of vulnerability. You cannot evolve as a team member, as colleagues, if you don't address and recognize the issue. Recognizing, that's why team awareness is important. If you do not recognize the issue and you are open with each other, you will not be able to go to the next step. So the first step is just recognizing it, is to have that conversation saying, okay, guys, let's have an open conversation on things. What are the things that we are loving about this team? What are things that could be better? What are things that are draining our energy? What are things that are bringing energy to us? That conversation allows to see patterns. And maybe someone says, you know what, guys, we are all having stress because the deadlines are too tight and no one talks about them. I don't know. And then you have that conversation. You need to have this balanced conversation and be open with each other and be vulnerable of saying, you know what, this is giving me a lot of stress. The way you are handling, I know, these priorities, or the way that you are doing back-to-back Zoom calls for 3 hours really drains me down. I cannot be attentive for so long. Let's try to change it. Let's do a test that for the next 2 weeks, no one books calls in these 2 hours that you can relax. The other thing could be, well, let's all try together every day to start doing a check-in on how you feel personally. So these are some of the things of how you deal with that. But we could go in a long conversation on how to do that, Nitya. The first point is that without acknowledgement, you cannot deal with anything. So having that acknowledged moment as a team, that centered moment of saying, okay, let's meet as a team, as a colleague, and let's see how we are, working as a team. What has been great, what could be even better, what isn't clear, what gives us energy and what drains us energy. And have from a team point of view without individualizing, because that's when it becomes hurtful. So what the other thing is about building that network professionally and personally. Go beyond your comfort zone. LinkedIn is such a great tool. Don't feel afraid to connect with people. The one thing I always say, if you connect with people, don't just send a connect request. Explain why are you connecting. Say, hey, I am connecting with you because I read this book of yours. I saw you in this podcast. I listened to this. I see that you are in this role. I see you have a great career. I like to learn more from you. Explain why you are connecting to someone. Start building your professional network. Start to know which kind of network you want to build. I want to build a network of marketeers. Start following marketeers. Start interacting with them on the comments. You will be surprised how much you can gain and learn from being on active networks online. That's one of them. Then the other ones is to start getting out of the comfort zone by going to maybe some events, attend some webinars online that you are not used to, just to see what happens there. So I'm talking about digitally, of course, but when you are offline, try to go to a meetup. So anything that gets you out of the comfort zone, that's great, but especially of building a network professionally and personally means that you start thinking about now which kind of network I want to build, not for a lifetime because it changes, but for now, I think I'll benefit from having a network of this amount of people that are my peers. Let me connect with more and more of them. And when I say connect and build that network, think about quality, not quantity. Having, 5,000 connections where you interact only with 10 people is much worse than having a network of like 100 people and they are all super connected. Build your strong community. That's more important to build that really strong network community of trusted advisors that you really, really interact a lot than having, 1,000 people that you don't really connect with. Then it's about learn. That's one of the most important things, which is the learning index, and the pressure to learn is at the highest level as ever before. So read books, not phone chats. So diverse set of books, learn new concepts, challenge yourself. I always try to read 3 types of books to keep always pushing myself. I read a novel because it's like sometimes fun to read, gets me off, being a crime novel, romantic novel, like sometimes like a story. I try to read a business book, and I try to read what I can call a personal development book. I separated 3 of them, because a business book can be a book of, Musk, for example, and his biography. It's a bit of a business, a bit of personal. A personal development book can be a book about mindfulness that I want to read a bit more. So, I always keep a variety of books to get me off, because if you only read business books, you also get trapped into the style of reading the business book. You might want to read Harry Potter, and that's still great. So, just see that. Then find the themes of expertise. Start writing down, journal, and be like, okay, what do you want to stand for? You know, I'm really passionate about architecture. Great. Then start seeing about what exactly the architecture gives you energy, and start grouping into themes that you want to become an expert on, and start following trends and things that really give you energy on a daily basis. I always say, like, read what triggers your thoughts and don't read news. I avoid reading in news. Yeah, I can give a reading list later. I can share with someone from the organization afterwards, like some things that might be good to read about. And then get tech savvy. You know, explore tech products and gadgets. One of the things I did recently was to build up a smart lamp, just because I wanted to try to figure out how it works, you know, and to get a bit hands-on. See what the world is seeking and try to ensure you have a leap at work, because people that you're going to meet at work a lot of the times are so focused on the work, they don't see what's coming because they're just being led by the flow, by the wave. And you want to swim on the wave. You don't want to be like thrown by the wave every time something new comes. So keep exploring tech products, you know, like there's something called Product Hunt, which is a website that shares a lot of new products. I like to read about startups that got funding just to see what kind of things are being funded. I'm just trying to understand how the technology of the world is evolving. And yeah, you know, there's a lot of good things. For every great TV show that you see on Netflix, see, for example, Explain, because it's a really interesting documentaries that exist. By the way, just because it's a documentary doesn't mean it's true. Find alternative ways, because nowadays everything that is a documentary becomes somehow reality. And this is the last one, is probably the one that I find one of the most important tips I gave. And I actually realized I also have a misspell on the content. That you are more than a CV. You are more than a resume. Don't, you know, do spend time if you want to build a resume that is good, you know, but just remember that a resume doesn't tell anything about who you are. It tells about what you have done. It tells about your perceived expertise. It tells you a bit of some certain skills characteristics of languages that you can pre-evaluate again perceived. You know, it just gives you a couple of things. Be creative on what you want to get. Be prepared. I always say that you can always do special things. You apply for a company that asks for a motivation letter and a CV, but it's something that, you know, is a company in a position that you really, really want. Write to the hiring manager on LinkedIn. Say, hey, just to let you know, I applied. I know there's a lot of applicants. I just want to let you know that I really love the purpose of the company. I believe I can be an asset for you. I send a CV. I hope to have an opportunity to share more of my story. In the meanwhile, by the way, I wrote some philosophies on, I don't know, if you're applying for a product marketing role, I wrote an article on product marketing and how I see it, if you want to read it. That's it. By the way, the hiring manager is different from the HR person, because HR is less processual. They are trying to just filter people. They have a system. And remember, you are being screened by a machine most of the times than by a person. You apply for online, you know, a recruiting software reads your CV, gives some score, sees if you match the description, and then passes you through or not. So you are also being reviewed by an algorithm. So you have to be creative to go beyond that. So be creative, be active. You don't have to be an expert on everything. You just have to be, you know, just to think about that you are more than a resume. So find creative ways of doing things beyond the resume. Maybe do a video introduction that you want to send on your cover letter. You know, just start thinking about like things or ideas or initiatives that allows you to step out of being just a resume. The same applies at work. You are more than a job description. I always tell people, if you are just stick to your job description, you're probably you're going to become a specialist that doesn't grow beyond. Always seek beyond the company. Seek how the company is working, try to understand the business model. If you are, let's say, a content writer, try to learn about partner marketing or sales. Try to go beyond your job description to see where you can add value to the company beyond what you do. Even if people push you to what you're doing, say, hey, can I help you elsewhere? Find your ways through the company to do more than just what you are entailed or set up to do. So these are some of the tips on, you know, the new era of employment. So I would maybe, I'll recommend a list of books afterwards, and have it asked to be shared with you, some interesting books to challenge perspectives for the ones that want to read. So I would maybe take some other questions. overall on the new normal of employability? How to avoid distraction at home while working remotely? Maybe for, well, different ways. So by distractions, Agni, can you elaborate which kind of distractions you are having at home? Just to give a bit of more understanding. You can just write some of the distractions you are having, just for me to have some context. And in the meanwhile, if other people have questions, please feel free to write them down. Okay, Avni, social media, sometimes household work. Haha, that's an interesting one. So couple of things to keep in mind. One of them, social media, I'm going to be sharp on this one, that will not stop unless you turn off notifications and you are disciplined with yourself. I wish I could tell you that there's better ways. There are some apps that block you from the phone or block you from certain websites on the browser. So you can use those if you feel that that's something you want to try it out. But I would say reducing notifications immediately decrease my tendency to check the phone and to check social media and to check WhatsApp and etc. The other thing you can do is also another trick that happens. Most people have their apps in the front. Yeah, they have WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. And you click. What I also did is that I put, at least on the Apple iPhone, I think it's the same for the Android. I put within a folder, let's say, within a group, and I put it to the second part. So I actually don't see the apps when I turn on my phone. I do not see them. I have to basically actively go open the box, scroll to the right. And so they are not the primary objective. So you have to have them out of sight. So you cannot have them on your browser. You cannot have on your thing. That's the way to get, to avoid a distraction, because otherwise you have a notification is there. And then someone say, okay, but what if it's something urgent? What if it's something urgent? People call. It's old school. If it's important, people will call. With household work and other things is about an agreement. And that's the thing that you have to figure out. Your house is an agreement. I work also with my wife here, etc. We have certain agreements. I'm saying, okay, how is your day today? You have to have that conversation also with the household. So you're saying, okay, today I actually have really important meetings in the morning. I'm taking a break here. And, between 1 and 2 p.m., I'm going to be able to tap into this household work. Okay, that's great. But between 2 and 4 p.m., I really need to be focused. So it would be great if I'm just, in my place and not interrupted. Yeah, that's great. If I have to interrupt your message, I leave a post-it on your door. So one of them is about agreements. The other one is about disciplines. And playing a bit with your mind by removing the notifications, hiding social media. I know it's easier said than done, but it's possible. And yeah, household is all about agreements. How I go about managing my day and how I collate different activities. Yeah, that is a great question. I think there's different circumstances. Yes, so I try to always block at least when I can. I try to block 2 hours of my day where I do not have any meetings at all. At least 2 hours. Not always is possible. Sometimes work is a hectic and you have to compromise a bit, but I'll say 3 or 4 out of the 5 days of the week, I have these 3 hours or 2 hours I have clear on my calendar, focus work, no meetings. That allows me to set up my mindset to know that this is the time where I do have to advance work heavily. That is the time that I'm going to have my phone off. I hide my phone. That's the time I hide the notifications from work or even remove. That's the time I remove my email if I need to, and I just look at it. I also try to avoid having a to-do list. I know that works for some people with a to-do list, some other ones not. I try to avoid and just say, okay, if there's one thing that will make me feel moving forward today, what is that one thing? And sometimes it's important to ask this one thing. You can write a to-do list, but what is the one thing that if you finish the day and you cross it, you are like, great. And that one thing might not be one thing you can do in one day. So you might say like, okay, this week I only have one goal. I have to finalize this strategy presentation. This is going to be hard. I need a lot of collaboration. So I need to set up about 2 hours a day. So I want part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I want to feel progress. So the intention for the day at the beginning is critical. So normally in a traditional day, just to give you an idea, I wake up at 7 a.m. I normally have like a 10 to 20 minutes, normally 10, 15 minute yoga session with my wife. We do it together actually, which is really nice. It allows to get some energy. I have I have shower, I have my breakfast, and then I turn on, after having my breakfast, what I do is that I open my notebook, I look at my calendar, I look at my week, I look at what more or less my priority for the week and for the month. And I'm like, okay, I take about 10 minutes just to evaluate where I am. And I'm like, okay, the intention for the day is really this one. And then I kick off my day. And it's like a mixes of meetings and time off. And I try to take, a break every 1 hour, give or take, just standing up, drinking water. I drink at least 2-3 liters of water a day. The good thing of drinking a lot of water and is that, the more you drink, the more you have to, it's normally, the more you have to go to the bathroom, the more you have to fill the water tank again. And all of those stop moments actually create a lot of things. And then depends when I'm able to close the day at 4, 5, 6 p.m. Then I'll just go to have a walk. The walk is what gets me out of work and go home. I do a 1 hour and a half walk around the city because I can do it. Some people do exercise. Some people do go meet with a friend now that is possible, at least where I am. I would say you have to find which activity gets you out of the work and then you don't touch again until the next day, so that you can breathe in and do that part. I also do a night yoga to get to bed, and normally I read when I go to bed. And I don't try to do everything in one day. Today, if today I finish this session and I feel like I want to see a Netflix movie or something, I go and see the Netflix movie. I intentionally go for it, and I don't feel stressed if I just spent 2 hours in Netflix. No, I purposely chose I'm going to do that. But then tomorrow, I'm not going to go again and see another Netflix. Tomorrow I'm going to say, not today, I'm going to try to do reading a book calmly. So I try to vary a bit the activities. I know it doesn't really give all the answers you need, but it's all about starting, if you at least start with, I'm going to start the week, set your intention for the week, written down, and start doing a check-in at the beginning of the day and a check-out. Check-in and check-out, check-in and check-out. Just see how it works and then adjust. You have to see your week and your day as an experiment. And if you keep doing experiments, you're going to find out what's going to work out. Some people are productive after lunch, some people at the end of the day, some people in the morning. You have to see what works for you. I would say maybe one final question if you have. If not, I assume that we can conclude the session.
I don't see any more questions. So I would like to thank you for taking out time from your day and giving us such an insightful session. And hopefully, I think it will help and enable all of us to be more productive during these uncertain times.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for joining in. And it was a great session. And I'll see you, most of you, in the next career session, I think. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'll send the slides afterwards in PDF so that you can read afterwards and a bit more about that. And I'll try to send something with the book list. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
For a great night. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.